The worst, rudest legislator can compete with my mule when he decides he doesn't feel like moving. I have a lot of practice dealing with very stubborn beasts.
All right. And then finally, we have a lot of parents who listen to this podcast. So I want to hear about your children's book.
Yeah, I am the author of a book called Little Red Riding Boots. It's about a tough little cowgirl version of Little Red Riding Hood, where she goes out to save her pony Fanny from a mountain lion instead of her granny from a wolf. And it was a fun book for me to write. I initially was really paralleling the Little Red Riding Hood story very closely, and I got stuck at the point where the woodsman in the original story comes and saves Little Red Riding Hood. And I finally realized, oh, of course, how could I possibly write a book where a man sweeps in to save a little girl from danger? This little girl needs to save herself, which I think ties in nicely to where we are right now and why so many women are stepping up. We have realized we have to save ourselves, and we have the tools, and we just need to use them.
I love it. Well, Amazon just told me that your book is on its way to my house, so I'm super excited to share it with my kids.
Oh, wonderful. I hope you enjoy it and that they enjoy it.
All right. Was there anything else that you want to make sure that our listeners know about you or Texas or mules or Jeopardy?
I'll just say that our short game with running is to flip this seat. And to flip this seat, it's to turn out people who haven't voted. But our long game is also to go out there and to carry the progressive message to folks who don't think of themselves as progressives. And there's so much opportunity to do that, to explain to folks how progressive education policies help their children, how progressive healthcare policies help everyone and make a difference in their own lives, how progressive labor policies make a difference for young folks in their own community and for them. And that's the work that I'm really excited about doing, which is part of why I'm excited to be running in a district that is as divided as mine is. There's so many folks to reach out to and try to bring into the fold. And I truly believe that progressive and rural are not mutually exclusive, and that some of our work in states like Texas right now is going to be bringing those folks back into the fold.
All right. Well, that is a good, hopeful message, and I love it. Thank you so much, Erin, for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Kelly, and I am thrilled in this segment to have not just one woman running for office, but two. So I've got with me Lorraine Wilburn and Lauren Friedman. And Lorraine is running for Ohio House District 48, and Lauren is running for Ohio Senate District 29. And these are districts that overlap somewhat, so we thought we would have them talk to you guys together. So hello, Lorraine and Lauren.
Hi.
So I'm super excited to have you guys because I can promise you at least two listeners who are actual voters of yours because my parents live in your districts. So
That's awesome.
So if nothing else, you should convince them to vote for you. So listeners may remember that Lorraine was also on our Ohio episode, and so we had stayed in touch since then, and I was thrilled to find out that she was running. Maybe just to start, we could give a little introduction. You are Lauren. Why don't you start and tell us just a little bit about who you are and why you decided to run for office now?
I'm Lauren Friedman, and I'm a 37-year-old mom of 3 boys, and I grew up in Stark County, Ohio, and I joined the Navy right after I graduated high school. I served in the Navy for 9 years. When I came back to Ohio after I got out of the Navy and worked in public service and started raising my family and got to know firsthand the challenges that people in this area of Ohio are facing. That kind of brings us to today, where I'm just really interested in trying to make things better for the people in our community.
Right. So Stark County native, I have to ask you, where did you go to high school?
I went to Lake High School.
All right. I went to Jackson.
Okay.
I think I'm a year or two ahead of you. So, all right. Lake is acceptable.
I thought Jackson was okay.
All right. And I love it, a mom of 3 boys. I'm a mom of 2 boys.
Oh, okay.
And then, Lorraine, why don't you also tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're running now?
Well, I'm actually from Maryland and moved here several years ago with my husband when his job moved us here. I am also a mom. I have a boy and a girl. I live in North Canton. I have always been pretty politically engaged and active. I've always been a community advocate and activist in, different periods of my life, both professionally and as a volunteer. I've volunteered on various campaigns and volunteered for various women's organizations and have always, maintained some commitment to issues and causes that meant something to me. I came to this place here where I am running for office, mostly because, as you heard in a previous episode, Lauren and I started Action Together Stark, which is a progressive activist group here in Stark County, and just getting to know community members and seeing the issues that we're facing, and also, sort of the upset of the 2016 election made me realize that there are some real challenges and some big changes that need to be made here in Stark County. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, running for office is not something that I ever really considered as a viable option for me. I always kind of wanted to be behind the scenes doing things, but it just kept being brought up to me. And I finally said, you know what, why not? I'm passionate, I have a good work ethic, and I have some ideas. And there are a lot of things that need to change here. So that's why I'm running, hoping to bring some positive change to Stark County. We have a lot of people looking for positive changes in Stark County. So
I think that's a common story that you hear, that women often have to be asked to run for office before they consider it. And so, it's not surprising that would be true. I'm glad that people did ask you.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that Lorraine asked me multiple times. Same story here. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been asked, probably, but now I'm just super grateful that we're in this together.
Yeah, and it's really neat that you guys have this partnership, since your districts do overlap somewhat, that you can sort of be running as a team. I think that's really helpful for anybody who's running for office for the first time, but I think particularly for women, having that support structure can be really important when you're running.
Absolutely. And, we're not going to have Republican money. So we're also pulling resources, and we have a lot of the same friends who want to help. And so rather than, kind of making everybody stretch themselves really thin on 2 different campaigns, we thought, why not do this as sort of a coordinated thing and just work together as much as possible where it really makes sense. And so far, I think it's been really helpful for both of us. It's really nice as a first-time candidate to have somebody in it with you who knows what you're going through. I think Lauren and I talk about 50 times a day. And we've been, really supporting each other and helping each other through this process. There's a lot to learn and a lot of mistakes that you make that you help each other through.
And it's a big adjustment to going from a normal working mom sort of a life to being involved in a political campaign with no experience. So it's really good to have somebody that you can talk to about it.
That's great. And so I looked up to make sure that my parents were in both of these districts, and they are. But how much do they overlap, and what are, is one of them a bigger district than the other? What do those look like?
Lorraine, I'm in 48, and House District 48, and my district is relatively small compared to Lauren. She's got a much bigger district and a lot more work ahead of her than I do, really, in terms of reaching out to everyone in her district. But I am pretty much completely within her district. So I definitely, am overlapping with her district.
And so that's entirely within Stark County?
Yes,
both of them are.
All right. Well, I can probably promise you even more Stark County listeners. I'm going to go tell everyone I know that they have to vote for both of you.
Well, thank you.
And
so you're both running as Democrats. Are there any other Democrats in the primary?
No, actually, both of us we are the Democratic candidates. We're not being primaried. We both had someone sort of jump in for a few days and took the lay of the land and decided that maybe it was, in both of our cases, it was a man. And I think that men are realizing that here's a woman and they don't want to go up against a woman in a primary. So they both left the race. And so here we are. It takes a little heat off of us, gives us a little bit of time to get it together and really get strong in our campaign.
And so the Republicans that you'll be facing are men. And there's this weird thing that they're like swapping seats or something. Can you talk about what's going on there?
Well, that is very weird. I would agree. They are basically utilizing a loophole in the term limit rules. Recently, there was a newspaper article where my opponent mentioned that he didn't think there was anything wrong with that. They just swap after every term and run the job that the other person has just vacated. He said that he thought it was okay because that's the way the rule was written and it didn't forbid that. So just because something's maybe not exclusively prohibited doesn't mean it's an okay or a good thing to do, though. And so I think both of us are facing people who have a lot of name recognition because they've been swapping jobs in representation, and doing air quotes you can't see, of Stark County for decades. But they really haven't moved forward from those positions, and they haven't helped Stark County move forward. So I think we're in a really great position because we do represent positive change for Stark County.
Yeah, they've actually been swapping jobs for 16 years, Olsleger and Schering, Scott Olsleger and Kirk Schering. So they've actually had an agreement that they would keep swapping, as whenever they were termed out. Right. And as Lauren said, it's not technically wrong, but it was a ballot initiative that people voted on. They want term limits. I'm actually not really for term limits necessarily, but if there's going to be a rule like that, it's a little disingenuous to work around the rule the way that they have. And, especially when there isn't necessarily a lot of concrete work being done. Stark County still has a lot of the same issues they had 10 years ago, or even, or some of those issues are getting worse. We're seeing jobs are decreasing. We're having a brain drain here, a real big problem with that. College kids leave because there's no jobs. Of course, the opioid addiction issue is a problem all over the country, but there hasn't really been enough done here in Stark County, and they've had plenty of time to address it in a real concrete way. And I think a lot of people feel that it's time to see some real results in Stark County and see, people's lives improve.
Yeah, I agree. And that would be really tremendous for Stark County. It's an area that I know very well, and it's still very near and dear to me. I don't have any intention of moving back. Sorry, Mom. But we do spend 3 or 4 weeks a year there. So, it's a place that I know well. And I think that there's a lot of really great things about Stark County, but you can really see that people are suffering. And it does seem like a lot of times the leadership, people who are supposed to be representing the district, don't seem to be working very hard to do that. So can you talk a little bit about what sorts of things are the issues that you care most about, and what are the things that you would really want to be able to accomplish in office?
Well, Lorraine and I have spent a lot of time talking about these things. Start with our kids go to the same school. I think that we share a lot of the same concerns and values that we want to really address so that our children have a good future here, and that they can grow up in a safe and happy community that's filled with possibility. So education is a big thing that we have a lot of concerns about. There are some issues with our educational system that haven't been addressed, and they should have been. But there are also some more recent issues with online schools that haven't been corrected properly. And so these are big issues that we need to find a solution for moving forward, and they directly affect our kids and our families. Like Laura said, we do talk about this a lot. Education is very important to us as parents, but it's also important because it represents it's sort of an economic justice issue when you don't have a strong educational system and you're not supporting your schools and your teachers. You don't have children coming out of a system where they're being, allowed to be or built up to be successful. They're not, they don't have that opportunity in life. So that's a really big issue. The ECOT situation is just sort of breaking open here in Ohio. People are really starting to talk about it now, which is the online school system, a charter school system that has been widely supported by Republicans in our state. And it's come out now that ECOT has fleeced Ohio of millions with padded enrollment and students who don't log into school, and there's no oversight.
So, those sorts of things, it really impacts all of us here in the community. It impacts, families like Lauren and I, because we have children in public schools, and charter schools have taken funding from public schools. And so that is definitely a major issue for me. I've never really been a fan of charter schools, and I haven't seen yet anywhere